Long time no see. Still childless? Guess you're just defective since you can't even show off a grand kid. Even though there's been a lot between Susan and me in the past, looking back, it still feels like my guts are boiling with anger. After all, the harassment for not being able to have children has been too much. I don't know how badly she wanted grandchildren, but blaming me 100% for not being able to have children is something I really wish she'd stop. To think there are people who would say something as awful as calling someone defective, in a way, it's almost impressive. I'm at the park right now. And I'm not alone. They're right over there. The look on Susan's face when I said that. The grandchild she must have been so desperately wanting to see was right there. But reality is cruel. She hasn't realized that what she's done will come back to her, how blissfully unaware she is. It's about time she realizes. I won't let her forget now. I'm Rachel, a 45-year-old housewife. I love children, which led me to earn a teaching license at university, and I worked as a teacher at a public elementary school. Being a teacher had its tough moments, but the joy of being involved in the children's growth made me feel like it was my true calling. I was devoted to my job, but one day, a childhood friend introduced me to someone. That was how I met Simon, my husband. Simon was 25 at the time. He had graduated from college and was working as a teacher at a middle school. He seemed to struggle with finding opportunities to meet people. Being busy with work at the middle school. He hadn't dated much, focused on his studies through college. He had talked to a friend about wanting to try dating, which led to the introduction. When I was introduced to Simon by my friend, I wasn't seeing anyone and was focused on my work. So, I wasn't too keen on the idea, but since my friend had gone through the trouble of setting it up, I thought I might as well meet him once. I remember that day clearly. We had arranged to meet at a cafe, but he was quite late. I thought to myself, if he doesn't show up in the next 30 minutes, I'll leave. Just then, I saw someone running into the cafe. I'm so sorry for making you wait. Simon arrived, out of breath, looking like he could barely stand. No, it's okay. I was just starting to worry, that's all. Actually, one of my students asked me for book recommendations. We got so caught up talking about it that I lost track of time. Hearing his response, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. At the same time, it was clear to me that he wasn't a bad person. Someone who could get that excited about books with a student must be well loved. And imagining Simon getting so involved in recommending books to a student that he forgot our meeting made him seem all the more endearing. I'm sorry for laughing so much when we've just met. I want to know more about you. Do you? Seeing your smile made me feel like my nerves just disappeared. You were nervous? Yes. Well, I didn't expect to meet such a wonderful woman. Simon said, somewhat shyly. Come on. I'm almost 35, you know? I'm probably quite a bit older than you. I'm 25 now, but age doesn't matter to me. From there, Simon and I got to know each other better. His passion for work, his kindness towards others, and most importantly, the respect he had from his students became very clear. It seemed Simon thought highly of me too. It hasn't been long since we met, but I'd regret it if I didn't say this now. Would you consider dating me with marriage in mind? Simon looked at me, his face turning red. I had already made up my mind. If it's with you, I think we can build a good relationship. Spending time with Simon was always enjoyable. Even outside of our dates, I found myself wanting to be with him more. Then, Simon proposed. Ever since I met you, Rachel, I've thought how nice it would be to be together forever. Will you marry me? Yes. I feel like I can be happy with you, Simon. I didn't hesitate with my answer. We met each other's parents and decided to get married, Simon and I. The idea of marrying the person I love and living together was something I couldn't have imagined a while ago. When getting married, we discussed our future work and the possibility of having children. One of the reasons I fell for Simon was because he genuinely respected my thoughts and life choices. I want to continue working even after we get married. Above all, I love my current job as a teacher. I've always felt that about you, Rachel. But what about kids? I'd like to have them if possible, but I want to respect your decision when it comes to actually having them. Of course, I want children too. It might be hard balancing work and family, but I hope we can start trying for a baby soon. Simon and I agreed to try for a baby within our capabilities while continuing our jobs. Such things are blessings, after all, and not entirely within our control. However, we were oblivious to the brewing storm in our peaceful life. I'm heading out for work. Got it. You'll be back by dinner, right? Take care. After seeing Simon off, I was having coffee alone in the living room when the doorbell rang. Hello, Rachel. Hello, Susan. Simon's at school for sport practice. What's up? Then, Susan, Simon's mother and thus my mother-in-law, seemed disappointed for a moment but quickly turned to face me and blurted out. It's almost a year since you got married, isn't it? Yes, thanks to you. That's not what I mean. Before taking care of other people's children, you should have your own. If you can't even manage that, you might as well quit your job. Susan looked at me with frustration, as if her message wasn't getting across. That's quite sudden to say. Isn't it about time? Or were you planning to wait until you're in a stable condition? Are you talking about having a baby? You are 35, right? It's normal to have 2 or 3 kids by now. The sudden inquiry about children took me aback. But this isn't something I can control at will, so I decided to be honest. Simon and I have talked about it, and we'll let you know as soon as there's good news. What are you talking about so carelessly? I can't understand how you can be so laid back about this. I was puzzled by her increasingly anxious demeanor, considering she seemed calm when we met before our marriage. I'm sorry if I make you feel something. But this isn't something I can manage on my own. So, what? Are you saying it's Simon's fault? As she said that, Susan stormed into the room. Then, from inside, I heard Susan's voice. What's this machine? I bumped my foot against it. I'm sorry. That's an air purifier. An air purifier? This big? I have a dust allergy, so I'm extra careful about air quality. I'm sensitive to house dust, and it can make me sneeze uncontrollably. It's also for keeping the air clean. Sorry if it's in the way. Susan let out a huge sigh. Huh? Are you saying you're coddling yourself? Coddling, you say? That's right. You're making your body weaker by fussing over dust and garbage. If you need fresh air, just open a window. Unfortunately, we live on the 2nd floor of an apartment in a busy area, where exhaust fumes are a concern. Well, but with the exhaust gas, we can't really open the windows much. Relying on such a nonsensical machine. That's why you can't have kids. Susan looked at me as if she was absolutely certain she was right. If you really want children, come to my house next week. Yeah, but... It's fine. My husband isn't around, and I'm the only one there, so it won't bother anyone. The thought of going there made me feel gloomy. Next week, I visited Susan's house. Come this way. Susan took my hand and led me into the living room. As soon as I entered, a strange scent hit my nose. Excuse me, but this smell. I was at a loss for words to describe the strange aroma when a cup that seemed to contain tea was presented to me. Here. This tea is supposed to be good for your health and make it easier to get pregnant. Am I supposed to drink this? What about you, Susan? I'm not drinking it. They say good medicine tastes bitter, so I'm being harsh for your own good. Susan declared, pushing a bag resembling paper into my purse as I struggled with the bizarre color and smell of the tea, which seemed undrinkable. What is this? Don't go through someone's bag like that. Don't talk to me like I'm a thief. This tea, if you drink 4 cups a day, it's supposed to be effective. And next, there's this. Susan continued, pulling me towards the yard where I saw a mountain of laundry. What's with all the laundry? I asked, puzzled by the sight of gauze towels, tiny clothes, and bibs that clearly weren't Susan's. A friend gave them to me. Touching and washing children's things supposedly makes pregnancy more likely. It's also good practice for when you have a child. She explained, bringing out a large tub as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Washing with all your heart is said to welcome a child into your womb. She added before leaving me alone with my disbelief. Simon and I indeed wanted children and discussed waiting without stress for the right time. Yet here was Susan, pushing bizarre practices on us. Frustrated but unable to leave without doing anything. I washed and hung the children's clothes as told. "Susan, I'm done." "Then come back the day after tomorrow and wash like you did today." "But I have work." "Work? You can find time before or after work if you really want children." She countered, pushing me to the limits of my patience. Out of sheer stubbornness, I followed Susan's instructions. Washing unknown children's clothes by hand in the cold night air, leading to severely chapped hands despite using hand cream. "What happened to your hands?" Simon asked with concern, hesitant to share the truth about his mother's outdated superstitions. I eventually told him about Susan's belief that hand-washing children's clothes could lead to pregnancy. Additionally, since Simon also expressed a desire for children, I was worried about speaking ill of his mother. "Actually, your mom has been asking if we have children yet. She told me that hand-washing children's clothes could make it easier to get pregnant, so I've been going to her house every other day to wash them." At this, Simon looked at me with disbelief, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "What? She really thinks that'll work?" Simon pondered for a moment before speaking with a sense of resolve. "I'll talk to Mom, so you don't have to go over there anymore. Actually, Mom said she's going to try living on her own since there's some inheritance from Dad, and she wouldn't cling to her son or grandchildren. And I'm going to see a doctor." "Why the doctor?" "Because pregnancy isn't just about the woman, right? Maybe the problem lies with me. It's better to know." He explained, his reliability shining through. He always considered my troubles as his own. "Thank you, but don't overdo it. It's for you, Rachel. Staying silent while this is happening would be harder." He reassured me. Yet, Susan's behavior didn't change as expected. "I've spoken to Mom. You don't have to visit her house anymore." "Thank you. I'm sorry to make you do this, Simon." "Don't worry about it. Turns out, the difficulty in having kids might be because of me," Simon admitted with a hint of regret. "But the doctor said it should be fine with medication and regular visits. We'll see how it goes, and if nothing changes, we'll think about it again." It seemed like the issue was resolved, but it wasn't over yet. Susan, however, didn't take this well. Despite Simon's efforts to intervene, she sent a package filled with books on pregnancy and a letter expressing her anger, misunderstanding her persistence for concern. The books were about pregnancy and parenting, showing significant signs of wear. Honestly, I harbored mixed feelings of anger and disbelief towards Susan for going this far. When I shared this with Simon, it seemed he felt the same way. "Even though I told her to stop, she's still doing this?" "What should we do with these books? Even if she tells us to read them, honestly." "Mom must be so desperate for a grandchild she's not seeing clearly anymore. I'm really sorry for putting you through this," Simon expressed, choosing his words carefully after some thought. It's undoubtedly a tough spot for him, being caught between me and his mother. "She is my mother, but the person I want to protect the most is my wife, Rachel. If it comes to hurting you carelessly, I'll need to reconsider our relationship with her. But even so, she's still your mother, right? I don't want you to have any regrets if something happens. We might have to attend family functions, but beyond that, we don't need to interact more than necessary. I'm really sorry for not realizing this sooner." "I'm sorry for all this," Simon apologized. Simon and I agreed to minimize contact with Susan, setting boundaries for our peace of mind, acknowledging the stress she was causing. Simon has been sending some money to his mother on his own, but since this is a matter between parent and child, I've decided not to say anything about it this time. He understood my decision to limit interactions with his mother. Affirming his priority was our well-being over maintaining unnecessary stress from family expectations. It had been about 10 years since the incident with Susan's problematic behavior. I was leisurely sitting on a bench in the park, enjoying a coffee for the first time in a long while, when I heard a voice from behind. "Long time no see. Still childless? You're basically defective for not being able to show off any grandchildren." I didn't recognize who it was at first. But, even though she had gotten much thinner and smaller, it was Susan. It hit me that some people never change, demeaning others as defective right off the bat. Her spiteful gaze made my once warm coffee seem to turn cold and taste bitter, making me realize how much someone's emotions can change their sense of taste. "Oh, Susan. Why haven't you shown your face, huh? You haven't been saying unnecessary things to Simon, have you?" "I never meant anything by it." Susan poked the ground near my feet with her cane and said, "What's the idea behind avoiding your husband's mother to such an extent?" I said as she looked me up and down, oozing sarcasm. "Sitting here, drinking your coffee so elegantly in the park, you must feel so good about yourself." She continued, unchanged from the day she demanded I wash a stranger's baby clothes. I had been living peacefully for the last 10 years without running into Susan. I didn't want to see her, but I mustered up the courage and spoke up. "They're right over there." Susan looked momentarily stunned but then burst into laughter, as if the idea of me having a child was the funniest thing. She probably always assumed it was impossible for me. That's why I think she can adopt such an attitude without any qualms. It's her prerogative to believe that happiness comes with having children, but I wish she wouldn't impose her values on others. She then turned serious and glared at me, making me brace for what was coming. "What's this all of a sudden? Aren't you quite a bit older than Simon? No way you could have kids." Certainly, I am older than Simon, but being older doesn't justify the assumption that I can't have children. It's an unfair conclusion, she claimed, ignoring the fact that many couples with age gaps have children all the time. I took a deep breath, ready to speak my mind. "So," when Susan put her finger to my lips to silence me, as if saying I shouldn't say anything more. "You should have just done as I said. Whatever you've told Simon, running away like that. No child would be born to such an accursed person," she declared, her presence imposing. Despite 10 years of estrangement, I felt a genuine threat from her. The thought of being swallowed up by this situation filled me with dread. As I was being lectured by Susan, Anna and Emma came over, looking concerned. "Mom? What's happening? Do you know this person?" "This person is..." I hesitated on how to introduce Susan to Anna and Emma. Despite my bitter memories, she was their grandmother. Was it right to separate them based on my feelings? As I was pondering, Anna and Emma have never met Susan, nor have I ever mentioned her, so they would never imagine that she could be their grandmother. Anna and Emma started whispering among themselves, loud enough for me to hear. "Anna, do you think this person is?" "Yeah, Emma, I think so too. She was here the other day as well," they speculated. Susan, pretending not to notice their whispers, moved closer to Anna and Emma, trying to touch them with trembling hands. The girls looked unsure how to react to this stranger extending her hands to them. "Could it actually be Simon's children? My grandchildren?" Susan moved closer as if it were a touching reunion, despite the girls' clear discomfort at the sudden approach of a stranger they had never met. Then, taking a few steps back, Anna and Emma said to Susan, "You're the nagging grandma from the store, right?" "What do you mean?" "Do you think so too?" "I thought the same." Suddenly, they got excited, and I couldn't follow what was happening. "She's always at the store near our school." "Right. We always see her yelling at the clerks." "What do you mean?" "She's the lady from the store near our school. She's famous for shouting at the clerks, demanding her money back all the time. Exactly. She only yells at the young people, but when the manager with the name tag is there, she doesn't say anything. I had never heard such stories before. But it was clear she was picking her targets. It's just that I'm teaching them that they should listen to their elders. I'm doing the right thing. What? Anna and Emma looked at me, perhaps thinking I was being unfairly accused by the nagging store grandma. Mom hasn't done anything wrong. Please stop. They pleaded as Susan pretended not to hear and moved closer. For Susan, this encounter with Anna and Emma might have seemed like a momentous reunion. Tears welling up in her eyes. Are you really my grandchildren? Well, since we've met, let's have a good look at you. Don't come any closer. If anything happens to Mom, we'll hear this. Emma threatened, brandishing a large, brightly colored personal alarm. Susan seemed to shrink back at the sight of the alarm. Anyone would flinch if threatened with a personal alarm being sounded. It's not often that a grandmother is met with her grandchildren brandishing a personal alarm, treating her like a suspicious person. I instinctively moved to ensure their safety. And Susan began to tremble. What? It must be a shock to be treated like a stranger by the grandchildren she had longed to meet, I thought, seeing her shake. Susan looked significantly diminished in her state of trembling. However, I was more concerned about something else and decided to confront her further. According to Anna and Emma, you've been demanding refunds at the store? Why is that? Because they're pushing useless stuff on me, and it's causing me trouble. Susan responded, her tone suddenly firm, insisting she had done nothing wrong. I decided to ask what Susan would least want to hear. Are you having financial difficulties? Is that why you can do such embarrassing things in public? Embarrassing? Don't say such disrespectful things to your elders. She snapped back, clearly disliking that I had hit a nerve, her bravado faltering. But normally, it's embarrassing to act so boldly only towards young clerks. To not feel that embarrassment, well, that's just like you, Susan. Enough. Shut up. Susan bit back in frustration. Then Anna, with a puzzled expression, said, This lady always brings out empty containers after eating and yells for a refund. Indeed. Waving around empty containers and shouting was quite an extreme behavior. What? What do you plan to do with an empty container? I don't really know. But they were saying something about a poor old person doing such things. I realized these were the children's words. Are you perhaps struggling with money? Yes. It's terrible to grow old and be in need of money. As far as I can remember, Susan's house was filled with numerous high-end items. She probably spent all of the money from my father-in-law. Living in hardship due to financial trouble must be tough. If you understand, could you send me a little money? $3,000, no, $2,000 would be enough. I avoided Susan's approaching gaze. I must decline. What? After all that you've done, expecting help when you're in trouble is too much. Then, Susan glared at me in frustration. You really are heartless. To not extend a helping hand to a frail old person like me. She looked at me as if she was entitled to help, as usual. But there's no need for that. It's all self-inflicted. How pitiful for these children to be raised by a parent like you. Then, Anna and Emma stood in front of me and said to Susan, We're not pitiful at all. We love our mom, so stop saying mean things. If you say anything more cruel, we'll really go to the police. Susan was speechless at Anna and Emma's sudden retaliation. It must have been shocking for her to be threatened with police by the grandchildren she longed for. If that's how it is, shall I give you what you currently need? Really? Of course. Just wait a moment. I ran to a nearby store and bought something. What's this? Do you think I'm old enough to use this? I placed adult diapers in front of Susan. The package labeled Comfort Care Diapers was enough to intimidate her. Susan's face turned red with anger. You made me wash children's clothes until my hands cracked, saying it was practice for when you have children. Don't you remember? Susan's face became uneasy. After mumbling for a bit, she whispered, "That was for your own good, and I wanted grandchildren quickly. All my friends had them, and I was the only one left out." So, it's the same for me. For Susan's sake. Wanting grandchildren just because others have them, are you a child? Susan glared at me resentfully. Treating people as old or as children, you'll see karma. It's convenient for you to do as you please, but not others. Then, Simon's voice came from behind. He happened to see us. You're not still harassing Rachel, are you? Harassment? That sounds so harsh. It was just a little. I explained the recent events to Simon. It seems Susan is out of money. She's been causing trouble at the store. Last time I visited, her house was filled with high-end bags and wallets. Simon's usually calm expression turned stern. Mom, wasn't it a lie that you'd live off Dad's inheritance without bothering us? And didn't you promise not to approach Rachel anymore? Well, running into Rachel was just a coincidence. A coincidence? In such a big park, especially a children's park, running into Rachel by chance, who would believe that? Susan fell silent, hit by Simon's accurate guess. You've been hoarding high-end items, still doing that? Well, I just bought bags and shoes to match the places, and they piled up. I've been sending a little money from my allowance, and you were buying bags and wallets to the point they were rolling around? I told you before to only buy what you need. I feel betrayed. Then Susan clung to Simon. It's all a mistake. A lie. What's mistake? A lie? It's clear you're lying, Mom. Don't contact us anymore. And of course, I won't send any money. Simon turned and walked away without looking back at Susan. Susan collapsed on the spot. Rejected by her own son and unable to recover. If you had just had children sooner. If you had them while I could still see. It's not like I had children for Susan. With that, I left with Anna and Emma, hoping never to see her again. I warned Anna and Emma to be careful of Susan when going to school, but it seems they never encountered her again. One day, we got a call from the hospital. Apparently, a few days after our meeting, Susan tripped and fell at a supermarket step. When asked to pick up Susan from the hospital, I found her shrunken figure in the bed, along with the supermarket manager and a police officer. Susan had a bad fall, breaking her leg. It turned out she had been secretly taking items, and the store had been keeping an eye on her. Well, I don't want to hear any excuses. It's embarrassing, so please don't contact me again. It can't be helped. Simon used to send them to me, but now they're gone. I was stunned and speechless. Also, no matter who I ask for your contact information, no one will answer, so I was feeling lonely. I guess so. Apparently, she was trying her best to get in touch with me again. I must have been asking around hoping someone would tell us where we were. Susan has always believed that anyone will listen to what she says. But I had taken precautions in advance. I told everyone about her actions and about the unpleasant experiences I had experienced in the past, and at the same time asked them not to give out my contact information. I didn't want to imagine meeting a selfish person like her again. So, no one gave her our contact information. I heard that some of them were refusing her calls, so she must have been quite disliked even among her friends. Anyone would definitely keep their distance from such a person. I wasn't particularly surprised when I heard that her calls were being rejected. Susan ends up spending every day alone and feeling lonely while in the hospital. It seems that due to the stress, she has been hitting people at the hospital and is being given strict warning. That's fine for now, but I wonder what will happen in the future. The way she continues to run wild without realizing how much she is hated may be considered typical of her. I am spending happy days with Anna, Emma, and my husband. I wondered what would happen when I ran into Susan in the park, but I'm glad I took the plunge. I'm glad I consulted my husband about all the problems. We worked together to receive treatment and were able to meet the two daughters. I also realized that if we don't value others, it will come back to us. Mom, come here. Come on, Mom. Anna and Emma are looking at me with big smiles. I ran over to catch up with them and gave them a big hug. I want to live my life savoring the happiness of being able to spend happy days like this with Anna, Emma, and my husband.